Oh, hello there. I haven't seen any of you since last year. Of course, that was only about 2 weeks ago. We like to have fun here at Jack's Macca LLC, subsidiary of Macca Productions. This last year has certainly been a wild ride, hasn't it? Every setback turning around in some way. I started the year off with my dedicated YouTube SSD failing and losing all the assets and work that was on it, only to have some kind of renewed vigor after the rebuilding of that library, leading to one of the videos I'm most proud of. I based the framing device for last year's Every Game on Fire Punch, by the way. Give it a read, great book. Then, halfway through the year, I quit my day job due to burnout, causing my boss to call me, quote, trash that took itself out, which in turn led to a pretty drastic increase in video output, in part because I'm now able to do what I want, and because this is the only job I really have at this point. A link to my Patreon is in the description, by the way. But to top everything off, I was finally able to hit 20,000 subscribers, and that number is still growing. Thank you all for your support. But let's be honest with ourselves, that's not why you're here. You're here to hear me talk about every single game I played in the year 2023. Well, I won't keep you waiting any longer. Pull up a chair, grab a fork, and try your best to ignore my shows, because I will absolutely be multitasking. Enjoy. Wow, this sure is the first of its kind. I had some people asking me why I didn't play Elden Ring last year, and the answer is that I've never really played a Souls-like for more than a few hours. I did play the original Dark Souls once over a decade ago, and I just never picked up any of the others. I got Demon's Souls for Christmas, and since my roommate, who adores these games, had never really played it, we decided to play it together, comparing notes and stuff. And wow, this sure is the first of its kind! There's zero need to have a million different types of healing items. World Tendency is legitimately the worst, and the bosses are frankly underwhelming compared to what I know FromSoft has since made. Obviously, I can't say much about it as a remake since I never touched the original, but what I will say is that it feels like Bluepoint made a list of quality of life features to add, and then only added about half of them out of fear of backlash, even though the features wouldn't have taken away from the experience. Like, why can I not compare the stats of my currently equipped armor to a new item I just picked up? I also despise them for adding weight to the healing items. The majority of the time, the reason I was over-encumbered was because of the grass I was carrying. Overall, it's cool to see where this genre started, but it's a pretty rough start. Ah, yes. The first game I actually got to review for Game Explain. You can go check out my full thoughts on Persona 3 Portable using the link in the top right or in the description. While this version has a lot of positives, I still wish they just ported Fez and added FemC into it along with some quality of life options. To be fair, we do have an idea on why they didn't do that now, but that still doesn't excuse this remaster. The way they upscaled the backgrounds is awful. I booted the game up, and not even 2 minutes in, there's this hideous line of artifacting that just got left in the game, and I don't understand how or why this got approved. The ultimate example of a game getting announced, shadow dropped, and being exactly what I wanted. I did an Is a Good Game on Hi-Fi Rush, so go watch that for more details. It ain't perfect, but damn, do I love this thing. As an update, it's now the end of the year, and this game is still in my top 5 games of the year. Hell, I'm even somehow nostalgic for this thing, and I want to play it again soon. In the lead up to Tears of the Kingdom, I decided to stream Breath of the Wild's Master Mode, and it was pretty fun. There's really nothing I can say that hasn't already been said. I adore this game. On to the next one. Battle for Bikini Bottom has always been hailed as the best Spongebob game. While you can point out its flaws, the remake of it by Purple Lamp Studios from a few years ago is still an incredibly solid version of the game that made it more accessible to not just fans of the original, but kids who are growing up with SpongeBob now. After a few years, Purple Lamp has come out with their own original take on a SpongeBob video game. Is it as good as Battle for Bikini Bottom? No. But after looking back at that game and taking off my rose-tinted glasses, I can't help but feel I would think the same of it. Cosmic Shape is a good licensed title. Easily top 3 Spongebob games. Whether it's better than the movie game, I don't know. But what I do know is that for a kid growing up now, this could easily be their Battle for Bikini Bottom. And honestly, I think that's all that really matters. Could seriously iron out those bugs though. Despite my desire to do so, I have never played a Theatrhythm game before this. And from what I have heard, this is probably the best one. Personally, I really loved what I played and wish I could have played more of it. I treated this game more as something to constantly come back to when I didn't have anything else to play. But with 2023 being as busy as it was for me, I feel like I only got through maybe 40% of the single player content. I haven't even touched the DLC, and there are some tracks added from Neo The World Ends With You, Nier, and Xenogears I am dying to play. Good news is, I'll probably be slowly chipping away at everything it has to offer for the next year, so yeah, let's go, Forever Games! Man, I was so conflicted on Ishin when I was playing it. So much so, I had to do a discussion video with my friend just to work out my feelings on it. I'd wanted to play it for years, and while I never expected perfection, it all just felt weird. I don't think it's bad, it just took a minute to gel with me, and even then, it's like, good. It's like, it's good, it's good, it is a fine Yakuza Like a Dragon game. The original Return to Dreamland started the era that birthed Planet Robobot, also known as the best 2D Kirby game. For that, I gotta praise it. But honestly, I found myself a little underwhelmed by Return to Dreamland. It's really good, don't get me wrong, but after years of hearing people talk about this one, I just wasn't that impressed, I guess. The new Magolor epilogue was pretty cool though, if a little too short. Felt like it needed a bit more meat on its bones to really be great. The original Resident Evil 4 was my first Resident Evil game, and in a lot of ways, it was my favorite one. That was until the Resident Evil 2 remake came out and just blew away all of my expectations. To this day, it is my favorite survival horror game, and I don't think that is gonna change anytime soon. The good thing is, in my mind, Resident Evil 4 doesn't really feel like a survival horror game. Ever since I went back and played classic RE and learned what those games were like, I've always thought of RE4 as more of a horror-themed action game. The remake is no different. Seeing as it was made by the same team that made the RE2 remake, it comes to no surprise that I think the RE4 remake is phenomenal and probably the best made game I played all year. Hell, for most of the year, it was my game of the year. You can prefer the original RE4 over this one, but I feel like it is undeniable that the remake is easily one of the finest games Capcom has ever made. Still prefer the RE2 remake though. You wanna know how busy 2023 was for video games? I bought Octopath Traveler 2 the day it came out in February. Started it in March, put it on hold when Future Redeem dropped in April, started it over in September when I finally had a good chunk of time to spare, and was finally able to finish it midway through October. And you know what? It's everything the first game wanted to be and more. It just does everything better. The stories are better, the music is god tier and got snubbed at the Game Awards. Combat is excellent. The HD 2D art style is the best it's ever been. Characters actually interact with each other, and the ending is properly interconnected and has everything come to a head in a way that doesn't feel like a last-minute addition. While I still wish there was more interaction in the main party, Octopath 2 is easily one of the best RPGs of the year, and it sucks that it just seems to have been overlooked by the masses. Base Xenoblade 3 is my second favorite game of all time. It's an absolutely beautiful game that not only made me cry, but it also kept me coming back until I had done everything it had to offer. However, one issue I had was with its expansion pass. Xenoblade 2's DLC set an incredibly high bar, but 3's was underwhelming. The challenge mode paled in comparison to 2's, and was only saved by its incredibly fun roguelike mode. The 2 DLC heroes were fun, but I felt they were unbalanced in terms of representing Xenoblade as a series, as both characters were firmly Xenoblade 2 oriented. Little did I know, Future Redeemed would come along and not only balance things out by being super Xenoblade 1 focused, but it would also end up being easily the best of the additional campaigns Monolith Soft has added as DLC or in new releases. I participated in a review discussion over on GameXplained where I talked with Nintendon about just how amazing this DLC is, so feel free to head over and give it a look. But honestly, the best way for me to put it, Future Redeemed not only feels like it's its own game separate from Xenoblade 3, but it's the perfect capstone to the first story arc in one of my favorite series of all time. Whatever comes next for Xenoblade can't come soon enough. God, I hope we go back to X at some point. Tears of the Kingdom is incredible, and is basically Breath of the Wild, but more. It does everything better. The map is more than doubled in size with the addition of the sky and underground. Building contraptions is a ton of fun and really made me feel like a smart guy for once. It actually feels like there's a story this time around with actual characters that I like. And the final boss battle is probably one of the coolest set pieces in the entire series. All that said, I like Breath of the Wild more. Tears is a better game, but Breath of the Wild was a completely new experience that I couldn't have predicted anything about. It's a game that's been hard to replay because so much of my love for it came from experiencing it all for the first time. I understand wanting to reuse the map of Hyrule, but I honestly feel like the only way to make me feel like I did back in 2017 is to make a brand new map for me to explore and discover the world through. Also, while the story in Tears is better than Breath, not only is it still not where I'd like Zelda stories to be in terms of structure and quality, but it also feels like it can't decide whether it's a sequel or not. There has never been more evidence that Nintendo does not give a shit about the Zelda timeline. Just wanted to touch on this real quick. I did a Is a Good Game on Etrian Odyssey HD, and I was shocked by how well that video did. Seriously, thank you all for the support. Etrian Odyssey is a really solid game that suffers heavily from first game syndrome, but that never takes away from what a unique experience it is. Go give my video a watch if you want to know more. On to Final Fantasy. I also did a video on Final Fantasy XVI. Cards in the top right so you can go watch it. But to summarize, it's great. It has problems, but it's still a great game to me. I think a lot of people saying it's not a real Final Fantasy are just being unfair. Hopefully Yoshi P and his team can improve upon this formula and make a truly top-tier Final Fantasy game. I also did a video on Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, but this time it was for GameXplain. I'd appreciate it if you guys go watch that and told GameXplain to keep hiring me for more gigs, cause like a week before this review came out, I quit my day job. As a massive fan of Jet Set Radio, this was an incredibly easy love, and I stand by my comment that it is the Jet Set Radio 3 we never got. I realize the irony in that statement. Another game I did a video on, except this time it bombed. Going into Battle Network 1, I was told by many fans that if at any point I wanted to just skip this first entry, no one would blame me. What they failed to factor in is that if I like a series and an entry isn't some god-awful piece of shit, then I'm totally willing to just deal with whatever crap is thrown my way. And guess what? I liked Battle Network 1. Skip it if you ever get tired of its bullshit. Please go watch my deep dive on it. Don't let my efforts be in vain. I finally got around to this after a few months, and you know what? The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog is great for what it is. It's a fun little side adventure with some good writing, a great art style, and a fun concept. The best thing about it is that it lets Sonic's supporting cast breathe and just play off of each other in a way I feel hasn't been done in, well, God, I have no idea how long. I hope we get more of these free visual novels in the future, and hopefully they can bring in some of the IDW comic characters like Rough and Tumble, Surge, and Lanolin. So the Thousand Year Door remake was announced, and I was so excited I just wanted to play any Paper Mario that was available. I never beat the original game as a kid, and I had Switch Online, so I thought, hey, how about I stream it and beat it for once? And I did! And it was great! You know what wasn't great? Opening the menu while playing it in the NSO app. Why does the Nintendo 64 emulator suck ass? Following up Battle Network 1 is the entry I was happy to discover I actually played as a kid. Battle Network 2 was a massive step up in almost every way. The story feels so much more interesting and coherent. Map design is so much more intricate, yet easily understood. And combat is made 100 times more fun and fulfilling. I can't wait to see how these games improve in the future, but first I gotta figure out which version of 3 to play. So funny story! While I was playing the Final Horizon update for Sonic Frontiers, I was listening to a bunch of videos talking about Twin Peaks: The Return, and now I have the strangest connection between Twin Peaks and Sonic Frontiers in my brain. I cannot disconnect the two, and it's both for better and worse.
We live inside a dream.
The final update for Frontiers is fun. The problem with it is they don't give you all the tools you need in the beginning, and instead want you to run around and just figure out what those tools are and unlock them. Once I got all the basic platforming moves, I actually enjoyed myself, but prior to that, it felt like I was failing to open a locked door because I didn't have the key the game didn't tell me even existed. I finally returned to what was then my game of the year with its DLC, and it's just as good as the base game. Despite playing the original RE4, I never actually played the original Separate Ways, but from what I've heard, I'm not exactly missing out on much. Separate Ways in the remake is a stellar 6-hour campaign that feels like a seemingly perfect complement to an already seemingly perfect game. The only problem, God, is Ada's actress trying. She's trying so hard. Good on her, but she's doing her best. I was on a bit of a Sonic kick around this time, though it wasn't on purpose. I Did It is a good game on Superstar, so you can go and check it out for yourself. There's a lot of stuff I like about it and a lot I don't. My main problem is that the game just keeps going and the difficulty just keeps rising, and it got to a point where I wasn't enjoying myself anymore. Call it a skill issue, I genuinely don't care. I was not enjoying myself long before the credits ever rolled. Let's just move on to something better. Man, Sonic Superstars should not have released when it did. Super Mario Wonder especially just blows it out of the water in every way possible. It's an utterly stellar platformer and sits right up there with Mario 3 and World. Surprisingly, my favorite feature would have to be the online co-op, quote-unquote. Most of the time, it felt like a way to help make the game feel even more alive than it already was, and occasionally a crutch to bring yourself back if you die. But every once in a while, something genuinely amazing would happen. Someone I'd be playing with would respond to my actions. They'd stop and wait for me. We'd make a silent pact to help each other through the level, whether it be finding a hidden wonder flower or overcoming the toughest challenges the game had to offer. On the final level of the game, literally titled Final, I ended up playing with this Luigi. His username was written in katakana, and it spelled out Wanda, which is somewhat close to how you'd spell the English word wonder in katakana, so I just call him Wonder. This final level is incredibly hard, but midway through, we made this silent connection. We'd approach a challenge, plop down our standees, try as best as we could to get past it, and then once one of us did, we'd put out a new standee that would let the other player make it past. This continued until right before the end of the level, when Wonder and I got separated. But no matter how many times I died and got sent back to the last checkpoint, Wonder's final standee stayed and helped me through the hardest challenge in the game. I didn't get any footage of my time with him. All I got was this screenshot of his standee after we got separated. I don't know what else to say. It was easily one of the top 10 experiences I've had all year. Anyone anyone else hate the name Marvel's Spider-Man 2? Like, let's be honest, who the hell calls it that except executives and people who are forced to call it that by said executives? Sony's Insomniac's Marvel Spider-Man's second outing, technically third, evolves a ton on the 2018 original, but it also ends up feeling less polished and less focused. Various side activities are comical in how detached they are from anything Spider-Man, and frankly feel like they're using the whole friendly neighborhood angle to poorly justify doing the weirdest stuff, like piloting bee drones that shoot fake lasers at fake bees. Miles is given very little to do in the story, and it feels like he just disappears from the entire plot for half the game. And the glitches, my god, the glitches. They are not great. Rarely did they ever disrupt the experience, but they became so commonplace that it makes me think this game had to come out when it did so it could meet the holidays. Overall, I enjoyed my time with it, but to me, the first game is still easily my favorite of this trilogy. I played the original Alan Wake back when I first started high school, and it has been a game that has stuck with me for the decade plus since. The fact that we finally got a follow-up after all of this time is incredible, but what's even more amazing is that it blew away all of my expectations. Expertly blending together gameplay and narrative in completely unobtrusive ways, crafting a story that's mind-bendingly complex, yet completely understandable. Lighting and colors so beautiful, I wish I had a capture card that could properly capture it. And tons of memorable moments, whether they be insane gameplay sequences or shocking plot twists. Alan Wake 2 makes it feel like you are playing an art house film, and I can't think of any higher praise than that. The one criticism I have to give it, there are way too many bugs. The game never crashed on me, nor were the bugs as prevalent as with Spider-Man 2, but what makes these worse is that they actively hurt gameplay. Every glitch I found was purely visual, and while things like a floating red sphere in the middle of the woods didn't ruin anything, things like the UI not updating properly to show where I need to go, container icons on the map not disappearing after I've grabbed everything, and really poor lip syncing brought down the otherwise stellar experience. I'm sure these issues will be ironed out by the time the DLC releases, but that doesn't make my initial experience with the game any less rough. Still, Alan Wake 2 is my game of the year by a landslide, and I cannot wait for whatever Remedy does next. Probably those Max Payne remakes they've been talking about for the last year or so. Rest in peace, James McCaffrey. Another game I reviewed for GameXplain. I wouldn't say Like a Dragon Gaiden is a top-tier Yakuza game, but what it is a pretty great spin-off title that more than justifies itself almost entirely by its final scene. Thankfully, the rest of the game is also super fun, but I just can't hammer home how much I love the ending. After 8 games worth of built-up love for Kazuma Kiryu, Gaiden was able to take that love and do the one thing no other game in this series has been able to do. Make me cry. That makes it, what, the 3rd or 4th game to ever make me cry? Here's to Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth and the continued annoyance that is whether to call the series Yakuza or Like a Dragon from now on. I didn't think much of Persona 5 Tactica when it first leaked, mainly because it did so alongside Persona 3 Reload, but even without that, it just didn't leave much of an impression. After playing it, I came away satisfied, though I didn't love it. It's a fun game with a solid system that ends up feeling thrown together. I Did It is a good game on it, so feel free to go check that out if you want to hear more. I just can't imagine people will be talking about this once Reload hits. Ah, yes. The original Mario RPG that was literally a Mario RPG. This remake is genuinely fantastic on basically every level. The remade music is amazing. The gameplay is as fun as it ever was. The quality of life additions add a lot while not taking anything away. And the newly added post-game is just so damn good. It's all just so great. The people who were hyping the original game up so much and acting like this remake was gonna blow the minds of everyone who would play it for the first time now and redefine what they would expect from an RPG were utterly ridiculous though. I genuinely think both Paper Mario and Mario & Luigi would go on to better execute on the ideas that they took from this game. Not to say that I think this is the weakest Mario RPG, it's easily still top 5, but man, it's just so overhyped. Not as overhyped as Geno. Heyo! Going back to 16 all these months later was an experience. I feel like the fan reception towards the game has only gotten more divided since I uploaded my review of it back in August, and it makes me look at it in a somewhat different light. My opinion of it is the exact same. I still think it's a great game, but I think a lot more about what it does differently in comparison to past Final Fantasy games. As an aside, the Echoes of the Fallen DLC is pretty damn great, if a little short. It took me about 2 hours to beat, but the quality just kept going up the entire time. While it starts off a little basic with the introduction of a new MacGuffin and about 30 minutes of running around, once I got to the actual level, I just fell in love. Visually, this is unlike anything else in the base game, offering some truly breathtaking sights while you run around a hyper-technologically advanced tower that slowly starts to morph into a gross-looking hybrid with organic materials growing out of it. The moral conflict at the end of the DLC story was also interesting, and it ties into one of the more important themes of 16 that sadly falls by the wayside in the last act of the base game. Combat encounters were great, with the new mini-bosses being some of my favorite in the game. The best part of the entire DLC, however, has to be the final boss. Not only is the music track just phenomenal, but the fight itself might be my favorite in the entire game. While this first piece of DLC is a little short, I think it makes up for it by being one of the best parts of 16. Hopefully the Leviathan DLC coming in 2024 is able to match this one in quality, if not go beyond it. Before starting my New Game Plus run of Alan Wake 2, I wanted to finally experience the last game in Remedy's catalog that they genuinely care about. Quantum Break is a game with great highs and genuinely disappointing lows. The biggest elephant in the room is the TV show aspect of the game. While conceptually sound, what we end up with is 4 episodes of television that range from a cut above the best CW TV show and the worst show the CW has to offer. Episode 3 was genuinely a slog, focusing mostly on characters I just did not care about, no matter how much they tried to. And I couldn't skip any episode because what happens in them is important to understanding the bigger plot. Now awkwardly insert them into a pretty solid third-person shooter, complemented by some cool time powers that acts as the missing link between the original Alan Wake and Control. Beyond the TV show, I think the biggest issue I have with Quantum Break is its characters. In a game with a decently sized cast, I only cared about 3 of them, and one of them I didn't care about until the end of the game. Jack Joyce is just so boring to me. Sean Ashmore is a great actor, but the character he's playing feels so underdeveloped. I don't feel like I know him at all, let alone most of these people. I think the reason for this is the game feels like it's prioritizing the story over its characters for most of its runtime. Overall, Quantum Break is a fine enough experiment, but I'm glad that Remedy found a much better way of blending video games with other mediums in Control, only to then basically perfect it in Alan Wake 2. If there were any other lessons to be learned from Quantum Break, however, it would be that you should put the episodes of your TV show that's necessary to understanding the plot in the actual game files, and not stream them from a server that has every possible chance to be turned off one day. Capping the year off is Metroid Prime Remastered, one of the biggest surprises of the year, and one of the best looking remasters I can think of. The last time I played Metroid Prime was my freshman year of college, and back then I played both it and Prime 2 back to back. Once I found myself back on Town 4, I quickly realized that my memories of this game had blended together with my memories of its sequel, making it almost feel like I was playing the game for the first time. The great news is that even after 20 years, Metroid Prime is still a phenomenal game, now given a beautiful facelift with the remaster that makes it feel like it was released for the first time today. Gameplay is genuinely better than it's ever been thanks to the addition of a traditional twin-stick control scheme, as well as the option to turn on soft gyro controls. Exploration is so rewarding and satisfying, naturally burning the map into your brain and making Talon 4 feel like a second home. It bums me out that there aren't that many 3D Metroidvanias, because the Prime games prove you can make it work beautifully. Hopefully the remasters of 2 and 3 are in the works and are coming sooner rather than later. Also Metroid Prime 4 maybe. Well, there you have it. That's what I thought of every game I played in 2023. I certainly hope I have satiated your curiosity, and potentially even piqued your interest in something I played. I know I'll be satiated once I read all these games off on my taxes. If you enjoyed what you've seen here today, why don't you leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of future videos. If you'd like to support what I'm doing here directly, why not click on the previously mentioned Patreon link in the description below. Regardless of what you do, I'll appreciate the support all the same.
Why didn't you play Baldur's Gate 3?
But before we go, we'd like to leave you with this thought. Actually, we'll be meeting again next Friday. I got a video with this guy coming. I'll see you guys in a week.